Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 155, Why Introverts Benefit from Practicing Gratitude. During last week's episode on optimism, I mentioned gratitude and the importance of me continuing my gratitude practice. I offered it as a suggestion in my weekly reflections email as well, and it was this that prompted a few replies saying how helpful it was, and also some comments along the lines of, what do I have to be grateful for? So I knew that I wanted to develop the idea more because it's such an important component when it comes to experiencing equilibrium. So in this episode, I'll be sharing some of the background to gratitude and why it's such a good idea for introverts to get really consistent with their own practice. So firstly, the idea of a gratitude practice is not new and can actually be traced back to ancient civilizations, including the Greeks and Romans. They would offer thanks and sacrifices to the gods for their blessings. Please note the thanks. Sacrifices are optional, so don't think you're going to have to slaughter a young animal or your offspring in order to practice gratitude. Anyway, more recently, the practice of gratitude has piqued the interest of the wise and has been studied and written about by philosophers, religious leaders, and psychological researchers. From a psychological perspective, it was Robert Emmons who first introduced the idea of a gratitude practice as a way to improve well-being. Now, by the early 2000s, Emmons was recognised as a leading expert in the field of gratitude research, so I'm thinking he knows what he's talking about. He and his colleagues found that people who regularly practiced gratitude experienced increased levels of positive emotions, greater life satisfaction, and improved physical health. And there we are, already heading in the direction of flourishing, don't you think? We know that many spiritual and religious traditions have long since emphasised the importance of gratitude as a way to connect with a higher power and to achieve inner peace and contentment. Whilst I'm not sure of your leanings on that, suffice to say that a gratitude practice continues to be an important part of many cultures and religious practices around the world. So why might I suggest that introverts could really benefit from a gratitude practice? We know that all humans are pre-wired with a negativity bias, and that as introverts we're prone to overthinking. And it's this overthinking, ironically, that we may be able to put to good use. Overthinking comes from the primitive mind and is one of our primitive preservation instincts. We needed to be hypervigilant in order to stay alive. Being complacent when in the land of the saber-toothed tiger is not a sensible strategy. And for we introverts, saber-toothed tigers today may look more like extroverted managers who insist that you need to be more outgoing in order to get promoted, family members who push you to be social when you need to just stay at home and recharge your batteries, and business trainers who start every course with "let's go round the room and introduce ourselves." Whilst I'm a business trainer, I have to have a very good reason for suggesting that, because it's what I call the creeping death of introductions. So, we're still in the land of the saber-toothed tiger. They just look very different these days. That primitive brain is the one that has us deliberate, ruminate and cogitate about what we said or did many moons ago and how it might come back to haunt us, frankly, long after everyone else has forgotten about it. And that's if they even noticed in the first place. You can see how overthinking feeds the 3 cognitive distortions that I talked about last week. We'll put the link in the show notes if you need to loop back for a listen later on. So here's my hypothesis, and stick with me as there may be a bit in the middle where you're tempted to lose it with me, but I promise I address the difficult stuff in the end. If we can overthink, in other words, think too much, reflect too much, cogitate too much, I reckon we can train our brains to think more, rather than too much, about the positive things that happen to us. Then, rather than feeling stressed and anxious, we stand more chance of feeling joyful and content. I know which I'd prefer. Okay, so I know I make that sound easy, but remember our brain's neuroplasticity, and frankly, anything is possible. I do want to acknowledge, though, that those with serious anxiety or depression, and maybe other challenging conditions, will need expert help with this. But for we natural introverts, this is absolutely within our sphere of control. And we'll need some relapse prevention strategies, because changes like this take a while to become sticky changes. Changes that are natural, changes that are new habits for us. The folks of the positive psychology movement, have I told you before what a big fan I am of that? Well, they spend their time in the scientific study of what makes life worth living. And they have found that gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to increase well-being and happiness. So how might this benefit we introverts, we overthinking quiet ones? Firstly, it allows, indeed encourages us to focus on the present moment rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. And if you know you have the tendency to overthink and ruminate on negative thoughts, coming back to the here and now is such a useful nudge. After all, you can't change the past, so why spend time there? To think about what you're grateful for right now in this present moment really is a gift. Not earlier today or what's coming later, but right now. Right now, I'm grateful for warm socks. It's still really cold here in the UK. I'm grateful for the delicious coffee I'm drinking. Decaf, of course, as caffeine makes me too wired these days. And I'm grateful to hear one of my cats, Lil, aka Minnie, purring loudly in the corner of my office. Cats really know how to live in the present moment, don't they? The second benefit relates to our preference for fewer, yet deeper meaningful connections over the more superficial ones. Because many of us are also empaths, or at least empathic, expressing gratitude for those who are in our lives, those who understand us and allow us to be ourselves, strengthens those relationships. Thirdly, research has shown that gratitude can help us to deal with our stress and negative emotions better. If you're curious as to why this is, and I know I was, it's because we cease, or at least reduce, our focus on what is wrong, that negativity bias. And what it brings into focus instead is what is good. When we do this, our breathing changes, the stress hormones subside, and our happiness hormones awaken. Gratitude is known to activate the brain's reward system, releasing those feel-good chemicals. Positive psychology also highlights that gratitude can lead to greater self-esteem and better sleep. When we get to appreciate and feel really grateful for our unique introvert strengths and talents, our self-image improves, our sense of inferiority recedes, and we are more likely to show up fully. This is a case of feeling grateful to be us, for our resilience, for our resourcefulness, for our ability to spend time on our own without feeling lonely, for our ability to appreciate the simple things in life. And at a time when many people are realizing that things, possession and stuff don't make them happy, finding happiness within ourselves is priceless. And lastly on my list, and the reason why we explored this topic in the first place, of course, is that gratitude increases our optimism. And a realistically optimistic person is way more productive to work with, more enjoyable to be in a relationship with, and more fun to have as a friend. I think those 5 are really powerful benefits, and I know there are more. Again, the positive psychology peeps identify the benefits in 5 key groups: emotional, social, personality, career, and health. And I guess we can use those 5 categories for the source of gratitude as well as to realise the benefits. So what are you grateful for in each of those categories? Emotional, social, personality, career, and health. I invite you to let me know which areas of your life are positively impacted by your gratitude practice, and maybe which still need impacting. One of the things I do recognise is that some find this practice easier than others. So here are some ways to find the path of least resistance. I recommend you pick your favourites, as some will resonate more with you than others. Start small. It can be hard to feel grateful when you're going through a tough time. So start by focusing on the small things that you can be thankful for. This could be something as simple as a beautiful sunset or sunrise, the affection shown by your pet, someone at work who actually gave you the space and listened to you. Reframe your thoughts. If you find yourself dwelling on negative thoughts, that darned negativity bias again, work at shifting your focus to the positive aspects of a situation. For example, if you're going through that tough time, what skills or knowledge are you using or indeed gaining from the experience? That's something to be grateful for. Practice mindfulness. This is a great technique to bring you into the present moment. One of the best little exercises I was taught is what 3 things? And as you can imagine, it starts, what 3 things can you hear? What 3 things can you see? What 3 things can you touch or feel? Connecting with these 3 senses brings us right into the present moment, from where we can begin to feel grateful. Seek support. What? I hear you cry? I don't want to ask for help. Remember that we're introverts, not misanthropes. So we need support and connection as much as the next person. And, of course, it has to be on our own terms. It can be very helpful to talk to someone about your feelings, especially someone who understands your introverted nature and is going to let you take your time. That might be a friend, an accountability buddy, and you know I have a few of those, a counsellor or a therapist. As John Donne said, no man is an island, and neither is any woman. Keep it simple and realistic. As with my optimism, my gratitude is realistic too. This means I don't have to try to be grateful for everything in my life, and neither do you. And it's not about being grateful all the time, because it's healthy to acknowledge and feel all of the feels, even those negative emotions. Start with what you can and be kind and compassionate with yourself. Be patient. Cultivating gratitude is a process that takes time. Be patient with yourself and don't get discouraged if you don't see immediate results. Remember that a gratitude practice is a habit that needs to be formed gradually, that you're consistent with so that it's sustainable. Try different methods. Different people have different ways of expressing gratitude. Let me share a few of the ways that introverts like you and me practice their gratitude. How about keeping a gratitude journal? Write down 3 things that you are grateful for each day. As previously mentioned, this can be anything from a beautiful sunset to the affection of your pet. Looking back on your gratitude journal helps you to realise just how much you have to be grateful for. And if it seems very samey, then you can be grateful for the consistency in your life. How about sharing your gratitude with others, whether it's through a conversation, a letter, or a social media post? I much prefer to see the social media posts that are expressing gratitude than those that are complaining. It can also be a great way to reinforce your gratitude and may even strengthen those nourishing relationships that you have with people who understand and love you. What about writing a letter to someone who has had a positive impact in your life and then sending it in old-fashioned snail mail? I don't know about you, but I love receiving written letters. Try getting creative and using different methods of expressing your gratitude, such as drawing, crafting, dancing, singing, or even cooking a meal. Lots of introverts are creatives, so allow your imagination to run away with you. Do be specific though. Our subconscious likes specificity, so rather than general statements of gratitude, get granular. I am grateful for my cats choosing to sit on my lap as the sound of their purring calms me, and I love the feel as their purrs rumble through my body. Make it a habit. I've shared with you before that my gratitude practice is at the end of the day as it leaves me feeling content. I fall asleep with a smile on my face and warmth around my heart. It really doesn't matter what time of the day you choose, just make sure it's incorporated into your daily routine. And lastly, practice in difficult times. This one really tests the habit as it's oh so easy to feel grateful when things are going well, but practicing gratitude during the difficult times can be even more powerful. And that in part because of how intentional you've been with it. In summary, remember that a gratitude practice is a personal journey. So it's important to find what works for you and make it a consistent part of your life. There's no one judging your gratitude practice, and you are the main beneficiary. So why wouldn't you want to reap the benefits? As Shakti Gawain said, whatever our individual troubles and challenges may be, it's important to pause every now and then to appreciate all that we have on every level. So let me pause and tell you how grateful I am to you for listening. I hope you can be grateful and appreciate yourself at least as much as I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.